The All-Star Race is in the books, and really the summer stretch begins in NASCAR. We'll talk about Prime joining. We'll talk about some hurt feelings after the All-Star Race, and then we'll get ready for what many consider the best motorsports day of the year. That's all ahead here on the 5 to Go podcast. And we have got that hot rod Lincoln fired up. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is episode 314 of the 5 to Go podcast here on GoPRN.com, on Apple, and on Spotify, and, of course, on my YouTube channel, too. We've been really happy, especially how the short videos are doing, so be sure to check that out. At some point, guys, I guess we're going to have to get an actual proper 5 to Go YouTube channel, but I wanted to start with some audience first, right, to just to kind of get the things going. But welcome to the 5 to Go podcast here. I'm your co-host, Doug Fireball Turnbull, from the announcing team at Performance Racing Network. I will not be on duty coming up this weekend at the Coca-Cola 600. A lot of our PRN base is Charlotte-based, so they will be there and close to the racetrack, though I have gotten to work it before, and it's a lot of fun. And we're thankful that all of you are joining here ahead of Memorial Day weekend. Hey, before we get to anything racing-wise, we need to have our heads screwed on straight about what Memorial Day is, all right? It is celebrating, or rather honoring, those who have fallen, fighting for the freedom of the United States and for the good of many others there. And that is something I have to remind myself of. So we want to make sure we're in the right mindset too. So just be sure when we're there and you're enjoying the barbecue, you're enjoying the pool this weekend, when you're having a cold one and watching the race, or having a Coca-Cola and watching the race. Let's be real. We only drink soft drinks during the Coca-Cola 600 made by Coca-Cola Company. No, but no, I'm having fun there, but really, let's make sure our heads are put in the right place about that. We are going to get into this, though, and thankfully there was no physical warfare, or I say thankfully, I'll just say there was no physical warfare at North Wilkesboro Speedway back this past weekend there. No Kyle Busch getting punched in the face, but some drivers with some hurt feelings, and we'll get into that. But let's introduce the people that will really help us dive deep. First off, he's our roving racing journo. He's a multimedia enthusiast who is in his closing salvos with the media team at University of North Georgia Athletics, and he's celebrating 4 years strong, I believe, regularly on this podcast here. Devin Kupka, buddy, you're clad in blue. I think you got big news out of UNG. How you doing, man?
Oh yeah. This episode, we're all UNG here. We've got 4 teams playing for national titles this week. Softball being one of them, men's golf, and we got tennis as well. So we've got a lot in store. And check this out too, right? UNG softball winning, big upset, number 2 team in the country against Francis Marion in Florence, South Carolina, not far from Darlington Raceway. So congratulations to them. I'll be in Chattanooga starting tomorrow night to cover their College World Series run that they have. And I just have a good feeling if they win that first game against Saginaw Valley State, who they played at home earlier in the year and beat them twice, I feel like we'll have a pretty good shot at things coming up. Because it's starting to feel like we're becoming a team that's going to go on a run here.
That is big news there. And next week on 5 to Go, we're not going to update you on that result. We're going to find out which one Devin finally asked out. We don't know. It's a mystery. He keeps throwing dust up. It's shadowy and shady. I don't know what's going on, Dev, but man, we need to find out what's going on there, because you made some great, and I'm saying that in jest, but you made some great friends on that team, both with your media department and on the team itself, and I think that's really cool. So congrats to the ladies of UNG softball there. We'll be rooting them on, and we're thankful, Devin, you get to be a part of that. That means, Devin, you had to choose between women's softball and racing this weekend.
Yeah.
And you texted me like all thinking I'd be upset about it. No, you choose what's best for Devin. But are you okay, man?
Yeah, I am. It's just it's going to be interesting on how I'm going to watch the race on Sunday. Hopefully the Marriott in Chattanooga is one of those newer hotel TVs that has Prime Video on it, maybe. Or you know what just came to my mind? Some of the Hilton branded hotels, Thursday Night Football, on their guide, they have a designated channel on there. Maybe they'll have a designated channel for Prime Video for NASCAR.
I'm betting the under on that. I'm betting the under on that, but that would be great. And a lot of hotels got the smart TV, but it means it's going to be easier now than I think with a lot of instances to take the race in your hand with you as Prime joins, right? Just because sometimes depending on what cable carrier you have, can you watch it on your phone or not? Will they let you watch it outside of your house or not? I don't know. So, you got a lot of options by the pool or the barbecue or wherever you're at this weekend to catch the Coca-Cola 600, which again moves to Prime this weekend with a lot of names, just with different skins, so to speak, on Prime. Now, also joining us, we can't go Coke 600 without talking about a guy that was a mechanic on a car when it was the World 600, okay? Because I don't know exactly, Dan Elliott, what year it became the Coca-Cola 600, but up until the early 90s at least, or the late 80s, it was still the World 600. But you're the master maker of speed, grinding those gears of the Dawsonville garage. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, and I was going to let Devin know to, while you're in Chattanooga, to be sure and visit the Moon Pie Museum in Chattanooga.
I'm gonna have. I'm proud because when I covered the national championship last year, and I'm very grateful they made it to the final round, which was the best 2 out of 3, because I was able to do the 600 weekend and do softball. So I don't know about this time around, but hey, you know what? I'm going to be up there for a longer period of time, and I was thinking about it, Dan, when they advanced to Chattanooga. I'm like, Dan's going to ask me to go to the Moon Pie Museum.
The Moon Pie Museum. I want you to bring me and Doug back a box of the mini moon pies.
I got you. I'll make sure that happens. I mean, I'll make a special delivery to you, Dan, next week.
And Dan, I've been around, Devin on the road a little bit. Devin doesn't eat a bunch of garbage. That's why he still weighs 96 pounds. Okay,
I didn't say for him to eat them. I said bring us back a box.
Honestly, I've only had about 1 or 2 moon pies in my life.
Well, will Doug eat a moon pie?
I will eat a box of moon pies. Are you kidding me? I love moon pies.
I'll eat some moon pies this weekend, and I'll report about it on the 5 to Go Facebook page too.
I like moon pies. I like Peeps too, man. Peeps are great. Like a marshmallowy kind of, I mean, I won't eat a million of them, but like you got to have a moon pie. And what do you watch now?
Those Peeps give me a sugar high.
As they should. Now, Dan, and you remember this from, some of the racing series around here for a while. And I hate to do sacrilege to Coca-Cola because Coke is my deal. All right. Coca-Cola is my deal if the feds are listening. But what do you wash down a moon pie with?
Yeah, it's got to be an RC.
RC Cola. It's out of the same deal.
RC
Remember they had
moon pie.
That
I don't know who started that trend, but it definitely took off.
Well, are they not the same company? I don't know. Well, okay.
I have no idea.
That there was that late model series. So when Chase first started racing late models, about 2009 was that year. They had the Georgia Asphalt Series, which was redundantly named the Gas Series. So the Georgia Asphalt Series. But then they had that, and then they had another late model series of pro late models that was racing around the Southeast, and it was called the RC Cola Moon Pie Series. And it didn't last long. I remember actually that Bill got real cross with Chase because Chase ran over Jason Hogan to win one of those races. You remember that, Dan?
No, I don't remember that one.
How am I schooling you on racing history? No, I'm just joking. I'm joking. But anyway, that's okay. So we got moon pies on deck. We've got, if Devin's going to ask out any softball team members on deck and softball results on deck. We've also got a big weekend of racing here on deck. So look, this is. Now, anything can change in the next year, 2, 5, whatever, but this is the last scheduled pre-Memorial Day triple header. F1 breakfast, Indy 500 lunch, Coke 600 dinner, because the F1 Monaco race, which to me, the thing that made it so great is it was on Memorial Day weekend. They don't care that the holiday overseas. The fact that it and the Indy 500 and Coke 600 are the same day is what makes Monaco so great to me, not an F1 traditionalist. But that's going to be in June next year. It's going to be a little bit later on the calendar, so it will not be a triple header Sunday anymore, which also probably means that some of us get our wives back, okay? Because I would just deck out the whole day on Memorial Day weekend to watch all that. But F1 in Monaco, that's coming up Sunday morning. All right, you can watch that on ESPN. Indy 500, if you haven't heard, I don't think there have been any promos. That's going to be on Fox. Did anybody realize that?
It's on Fox this year?
Is it on Fox? Yeah. They did. I haven't seen one commercial about that. Yeah, Indy 500's on Fox. They've got their priorities firmly squared on that. And then, of course, the Coca-Cola 600 will be on Prime. So, but before we look too far ahead, I'm looking forward to Sunday. I'm really going to savor it as much as I can Sunday, although we're having, and I found this out Sunday night when I was complaining about our dinner plans this past Sunday. We're having our neighbors, or no, not our neighbors. We're having some friends over for dinner on Sunday night during the Coke 600. And I went ahead and told Momo, and I said in no uncertain terms, with maybe some language spliced in there, Oh, we're watching the race.
I think the
So
3Ds ought to get together at the Waffle House and have a dinner at the Waffle House.
well, as long
I
as we
like
got
it.
Prime going, as long as we got Prime, yeah, maybe we got to figure that out when Devin's back
You
from
got your phone, don't
Hat
you?
Town. Yeah, I get. Yeah, we got to get it going. I like it. I like it.
That would be easy to do anymore. Take the party with you.
Yeah,
We're
we'll bring
happy.
a TV monitor with us to Waffle House, and we'll watch the race.
There you go. I'm in. And we could use it as a weapon afterwards if we stay too late and a fight breaks out. So it's Waffle House, my favorite. Okay, so look, here's the deal. We've gone 10 minutes into the show and haven't said a word about what happened at North Wilkesboro, and pretty momentous situation there. Christopher Bell gets another big race win under his belt. He takes the win, and he goes up and takes it from Joey Logano. We saw in this race 18 lead changes at the start-finish line, so to speak, 18 different lead changes that in a race that had like 0 lead changes under green anyway in the past 2 years. All right. And they had a great battle at the front of the race. Joey Logano trying to get into Brad Keselowski, his former teammate. Keselowski, which thank God this wasn't a points race, he crashed again. All right, he crashed again, but he did win the pole for the race, which is a mixture of his qualifying lap and his pit crew speed. So that was a big win for RFK. All right, but he cashes it in later on the race. Keselowski did a heck of a job holding on in a purple, white, and gold Solomon Plumbing Ford. Joey Logano's traditional Shell Pennzoil paint scheme, he goes to the front, basically dominates the thing after that. He has the race in hand, and then crew chief Paul Wolf makes a call to stay out on the promoter's caution, which involved, Dan, Michael Waltrip dancing up in the flag stand and trying to, egg the crowd on of when he should throw the yellow. I mean, whatever. At least it's an all-star race, whatever. And he even dropped the flag on the track. Okay. But they have this promoter's caution here with, I think it was 30 laps to go. I think it was lap 220.
Yeah, I was around there.
And that set up a pit stop. They've been green for a while, set up a pit stop. Paul Wolf elects track position and clean air for Joey Logano, and he keeps that position for a while those behind him are taking 4 tires. He doesn't have enough cars behind him staying out, so here you go. And here comes Christopher Bell. Joey Logano and Bell run all over each other without wrecking each other. Bell does run Joey up the track finally and take that position and take the win. Joey finishes second and gets out of the car afterwards, says he wants to have a conversation with Marcus Smith about the promoter's yellow. And then he thinks that what Christopher Bell did to him, running him up the track, was dirty, and that racers have a long memory and he won't forget that. All right. So Bell wins, spot on. I think we could agree the racing action, especially compared to short tracks this past year, thumbs up too, right? We agreeing on that? Well,
Yeah.
So let's get to Joey Logano's comments then. All right. Bell did a great job. We saw classic, the car that we saw, strategy versus race car, 2 championship caliber drivers, all of that. And one of them took it, that Christopher Bell. Devin, I saw you shaking your head more than Dan, so you get to go first here. Dev, what do you think about Joey Logano's summation afterwards?
Well, first off, the promoter's caution, that was going to be a wild card in the race because that could have been thrown pretty much at any point, that
Right.
promoter's caution.
But it had to be thrown by a certain threshold, right?
Yes.
Like it was very close to the edge of when
Yes.
the last you could throw it.
Yeah, but still, while they could have thrown it on lap 3 if they wanted to, or something like that.
Right.
But it's a wild card in the race. And you knew that promoter's caution was probably going to come towards sometime the end of the race or towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to see. And you just knew it was coming. And it's kind of that goofy thing. I know it's not typical to see that, a promoter's caution, but it's kind of goofy. But you just kind of had to expect that it was coming, and it could have came at any other point. But the thing with the Logano and Bell contact, I felt like it was a lot cleaner than what Logano portrays it as. Because if you think about it, right, and I just saw the highlight, Bell could have flat out ran him up the wall, took him up into the wall, banged the wall, and he didn't. It was the cleanest way that you could do a bump and run, in my opinion. I think it was the cleanest way you could have done it. It was very light contact going up the track. Logano's car really wasn't hurt overall by the contact at all, so I don't know. And Bell probably just really had a better car on Sunday night. So I don't think contact.
I think the frustration from Logano was that Logano probably did have the better car. He just had the tire deficit at that point. And that That's what I thought was great. Is I want to pivot to you, Dan, because yeah, you make a great point, Dev. I mean, yeah, there's a little contact, but it's a short track going for $1 million, and I know we think it should be 3 or 5 million, but it's still not an insignificant sum. That's one of the highest winning purses of the whole year behind the Daytona 500, right? So if they go, let's just say it, and we don't know the numbers anymore, but it's more than likely the second highest paying winning race of the year. The money doesn't matter as much; they don't announce the money anymore, but this is the only one they do. So there was a lot on the line, and there's a trophy on the line too. And those are two alphas going for the bone. Dan, what did you think? Joey Logano upset with how he got raced.
Well, it comes back to we've seen him do the same thing and make his car so wide that you couldn't get by him. And I understand it's $1 million, and I'm gonna make my car as wide as I can make it too. But it comes down to the decision that they made to get tires, not get tires, and that probably will be the question mark for the next months to come on, and this will reflect into races in the future too, because this is one of those things that you don't forget easily, not when you run for that kind of purse. So given circumstances at the time, Bell had the better car, and Logano could only try to block him and keep him using his tires up till hopefully he used them up before he got by Logano. That's what he was hoping to do, was force Bell to use his tires up, and that just didn't happen. And Bell was able to get by, and it also adds into how good the racetrack was in both grooves, because had that not been a factor, you wouldn't have had Christopher Bell. You'd have probably still had Logano as the race winner, because given the fact that you've got one groove, it makes it even more difficult to get by.
That is such a great point. So I need to ask you, Dan, what do you think has changed between the last two North Wilkesboro races and this one? Now, we know the first one, they had the old pavement. Second one, the pavement's brand new. So this is the first race where the pavement's been worn in a little bit. The first Cup race, the pavement's been worn in a little bit. And then also this short track compared to what we saw Martinsville, Bristol so far this year. What has changed about what made this race where they could actually use multiple grooves and get too wide and have all these battles for the lead? Because there were no package changes. They didn't do run what you brung. What happened, do you think?
I think the track spray that they put down, I heard they put the track spray down for the groove, and
okay.
And that would have made a huge difference in being able to run both grooves. And I think that enough cars ran up high to keep, as you noticed in the race, there are a few cars that got really, really high and got into the marbles, into the rubber that balls up and runs up the racetrack and gets so high up in the groove. And if you don't keep that groove cleaned off, if you don't have enough cars running up close to that and keep that pushed even closer to the wall, then you can't run that groove anyway. So enough cars ran high grooves to keep that clean, and that's what had to be done during the course of the race so that you could run both grooves.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that once you work it in there, and if there was some spray on it or not, I actually didn't hear that there was spray on it. So
I heard there was spray on the track, that they sprayed the upper groove. That's what I heard.
Do you think they might have repaved it? Because remember, SMI's last repave before North Wilkesboro was Atlanta Motor Speedway. Do you think potentially that they could have done a similar repaving process where they have the asphalt design when they repave it to age pretty quickly?
Usually when you get into a deal like that, you create some more problems. Instead of solving the problem, you create more problems. So that I haven't heard.
Well, but that's generally what that is generally the idea, right? That's generally the idea, is they're trying to create stuff that ages more, because like Charlotte, for instance, which now is really finally coming to its own. Charlotte got repaved, 15 years ago or more, and it's still like it did not age forever. It was just like made out of steel or something like that.
The different plans of the racetrack really do make a difference, but also too, you got to factor in, did they use the same tire they'd used before?
Right. Well, but several things changed, and it created this perfect situation. When I say perfect, it wasn't a perfect race, but people talked about it like they had never seen a good short track race before. I listened to the hype afterwards for the few hours or the day afterwards. You're like, oh my gosh. And then there was all this buzz about, oh, it should have a points race or not. And I don't think there's any reason it shouldn't per se. But I mean, I don't know where one of those goes. And I don't want to spend forever. Other podcasts, other mediums are talking about this a ton. I don't want to get too far down the road over there. But I mean, I want to ask the question this way. Instead of trying to figure out which place loses a points race, I want to pose it like this, all right? Just to do something a little different. So I'll start with you, Devin. Would you be okay, since our all-stars race each other every week? In fact, this is like a diet race. All right, you get 2 races broken up. There's one small race, and then there's the all-star race that still only has 2/3 of the cars. I'm okay losing the all-star race and just making North Wilkesboro a points race. Okay, or whatever. Like you can switch it out, rotate them, however you want to do it. But I would say if we're trying to, because Fox seemed to be politicking for this big time on the air, right? Like as soon as the race is over, should there be a points race? And I'm like, well, maybe it's just because they have a smaller package. They want their races to count more and be longer laps or something. I don't know. But Dev, what do you think, man? Should we just forget whether it's all-star or not and just say, hey, North Wilkesboro, we're going to have a race with 36 to 40 cars in it?
I mean, all the other major sports have all-star events. Now, some of them are in weird states, but NASCAR is one of those where everybody still kind of, it feels like competes at 100% now. But the Wilkesboro points race thing, I think, yeah, they should get a points race and probably just host one race a year. But when it comes to, should they get rid of the all-star race entirely? No. But there are changes that need to happen in the all-star race. I think the purse money needs to go up. I think $1 million. I mean, Dan, $1 million doesn't go as far as it did in 1985 as it does in 2025.
It doesn't mean
maybe up it to 2 or 3.
It goes far, but it doesn't mean as much.
Right. It doesn't. I mean, the Daytona 500 pays more money than that. Mm-hmm. And when they instituted $1 million, the Daytona 500 paid more money than that then in 2003 too. So, I mean, maybe that shouldn't be the marker, but it's easy to say, though, it should be $3 million or $5 million because it ain't my money.
But yeah, right, you're right.
We don't even have an entitlement sponsor in the Cup Series. This used to be the Sprint All-Star Race, Sprint Million, Winston All-Star Race, Winston money, Nextel money, whatever. It's not. That's not the case anymore. So but I do think that a case could be made for it. But I'm just saying, if you're going to put all this pressure on it, why not just make it a points race? I don't know. Just go out there and actually race for points. I don't know that I need the gimmicks or such. But now, if they had done Run What You Brung or something really off key, had 3 tire compounds or eliminated 4 cars, every 30 laps or, whatever, like something where you take 40 cars and go down to, then I'm like, okay, that doesn't need to be a points race. But if we're just going to race a race and have the only gimmick is the promoter's yellow, just make it a points race because it would have been a better race with more cars on the track, I think. What do you think, Dan? Because, you've been successful in the All-Star race. You've seen you raced in NASCAR before there was an All-Star race even. Has the race served its purpose? Is it continuing to serve its purpose?
I think it served its purpose. I think that you need to throw in. I still contend that you could have more races during the course of the year. As Devin and I were talking about before the show started this morning, we were talking about the number of races during the year, and drivers are going to find a place to race on off weekends anyway. So why not just NASCAR can have the whole cake and be able to run. They could conceivably run 48, 50 weekends a year. And I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever because the money is there to do it. I think the interest is there to do it, and you certainly have the different venues to do it. So the opportunities are there, and I think if you came in and did that, I honestly think the fan base would be there to support it as well.
So you think it should be 48, 50 weekends a year, not midweek races and having 2 weeks race? You think that it should literally last from January to December?
Why not? Why not do a deal and try that? And you could ease into that, so to speak, and just add races a year. But definitely Wilkesboro looks to me like it needs to be added in as well as I think Rockingham needs to be added in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt that here's what's encouraging. We could agree about where they fit and all that. By the way, I'm not anti All-Star race, and I'm like, if we're trying to figure out how to give places more impactful deals, you've got 2 exhibition races. You could just make points races. That's I don't see
Yeah.
the point of the Clash either. The Clash has less meaning even compared to what it used to mean than the
You're
All-Star
going
race.
through the full
Yeah,
deal of a race weekend anyway. It's like you
yeah,
said, everything matters. The car still has to go through tech. It still has to do all the things that it has to do for a points race. So why not
yes,
just make it official and
and,
let's do
and
it?
for the and for the people that run the Open, that go out there, they got to go haul the car. Granted, they're just going in within the state. It's not super far. That's good. I do like the All-Star race isn't in Texas, so you have to go run the Open and miss the race, and you're still spending however much money to fly everybody out there and hotels and all that kind of stuff. But if you're making all the effort, you might as well just be on the track, and that's the deal. The difference, if you talk about other sports have an all-star, well, first off, other sports have carved up and turned inside out their all-star games. The NHL all-star game, they have team captains and they're picking stuff, okay. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. The NBA all-star game is a joke, right? It's just a slam dunk contest almost within a game. The NFL Pro Bowl has become a flag football game or something, right? It's
Yeah.
weird. But I'm not totally against that. It's just no, the fans in those sports do not care about their all-stars either. Their all-star events. They care about the all-star players. And in
I,
our case, our all-star players are on the court with each other against each other every week. It's not special to have Chase Elliott race Joey Logano. They're not in different leagues. And they're still not on the same team. It'd be one thing if they were somehow you mixed up the cars and you had like this relay race thing, and suddenly Denny and Joey, who don't like each other, are on the same team. That'd be kind of cool, right? But you don't have anything unique in the All-Star race except it's a less amount of cars and some kind of wacky promoters thing.
yeah, I would say out of any of the sports, there's a current all-star game crisis across a lot of the major professional
ISIS.
sports in America.
We
But
need
NASCAR really
an
isn't
all-star
involved.
czar. If it's a crisis, we need an all-star czar. We need a committee, and we need to hunker down in the war room. It's a crisis. No,
Well,
I'm
it
just
just
being
comes down to
silly.
all these players in the other leagues, but
Yeah,
NASCAR
I'm just
is
messing
not a
with you.
part of the crisis, though. The only crisis they have, in my opinion, is that the All Star race purse money needs to be higher. But that's a minute issue compared to the other major
Yeah,
sports leagues when it comes to their All Star games.
I could also go with it going back to Saturday nights again too. I think Saturday nights is better than Sunday nights. Probably not for TV or something, but I just think that. Do you have something, Dan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the crisis is the fact that your championship race is settled at the same place every year so far. So let's get rid of that crisis.
Well, they're working on that. It's now going to be a rotation, and starting at 26, it's going to be Homestead.
Yep.
It'll be the location. So I think we're getting there. We're working on that. So
So the
that's good. So
czar is taking care of that.
this, yes, the czar is taking care of that. All right. So look, with All-Star race, though, big congrats to Christopher Bell. Let's just run down real quickly. I'll give you the top 10, and that's half the field. There's 23 cars that made it. There were 20 that qualified, quote, traditionally, right, by either being a past All-Star race winner, a past champion, or a race winner going back to the beginning of 2024. All right. So Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, they were the top 3. Chastain, if I'm giving out a grit award for the first third of the season, it is the Watermelon Man. Ross Chastain every week is overcoming a bad starting position or something. In this case, he started third, but he had crash damage at one point and stayed out on old tires, I think, to get the vote back. I'm looking at his sponsorship to get track position back, and he was able to finish third in that number 1 Busch Light machine. Alex Bowman was 4th, Chase Elliott was 5th, William Byron 6th, Tyler Reddick ended up 7th, Kyle Busch in 8th, and he went 3 wide for the lead at one point. That was pretty impressive in the 8 car for Kyle Busch, who got in this race not by being a race winner, but by being an all-star winner and a past champion, by the way. That's tough. Okay. Chase Briscoe was 9th, and Chris Buescher rounded out the top 10. Your winners of the Open, or the top 2 in the Open, were Carson Hocevar and John Hunter Nemechek. Hocevar actually finished 11th. That's pretty impressive considering he had to start 21st. John Hunter started 22nd and finished 19th. Your fan vote winner also did okay in this race. Noah Gregson, he started 23rd and ended up 13th. I don't think I'm surprised at all, guys, or you, that Noah Gragson, out of the ones in the open, won the fan vote.
No.
Is that,
No,
you know,
I think that was one of my picks last week.
yeah. And by the way, if you missed Devin's estimates, picks for the fan vote, go to last week's show. Download it. Like, subscribe. Respond right here. I'm just playing. Okay. That's big stuff right there. We talked about the open. How about Michael McDowell's pit crew, who was, I think, the 31st or 32nd fastest pit crew, winning the pit crew challenge? What does that say to you, Dan? The 32nd best pit crew, they were all in it. Everybody. So there was a period here where the pit crews that were for the open cars were the pit crews for the open cars were not, they were not included in the pit crew challenge. All right. They combined everybody's qualifying. Yeah, go
That's
ahead.
just it. You don't understand how close these crews, how good they really are, and how little press or coverage most of them get at any particular point in time. But how good these crews are, and all it takes is just the right opportunity to put all of that together. But they're doing this week in, week out, and you can see now how small a difference there is between what we consider the best crews on pit road and what we don't even consider when you look at when it's talked about, or when the press, when the coverage comes out, and you don't see these teams very much at all, but you see how good they really are.
It was really special, and Fox did a great job because the open cars qualified first, and then the cars for the All-Star race. So the open cars, that 71 pit crew was on the provisional pit crew poll, if you will. And I say that McDowell was not on the pole in his race, okay? But they were on the fastest time poll all the way from the open cars qualifying all the way to the end of All-Star qualifying. And it was all kind of together, which I thought was cool. And they were standing out there on pit road in their uniforms all jacked up. Michael McDowell went and got into street clothes and came out and waited with the Spire Motorsports guys. It was just great. Fox did a great job of highlighting them, of saying their names. And look, I don't remember their names. All right. I'm count me as the guilty media that doesn't remember all the pit crew guys' names. You think about it as 36 teams times 5 pit, there's 180 people or however many that is that are on pit road. So I think that was really cool. Deb, what did you think about that, man? And do you like the format of the pit crew challenge where it's included in the qualifying lap? It's all part of the main show. It's not a separate event.
No, I really do like the pit crew challenge, and it's always fun to watch that in person because I remember the past 2 years getting able to watch that in Wilkesboro. I remember last year's. Now, I remember how hot last year's was before it started storming there, but it's always fun to see the pit crews competing because I feel like that's something you need because that's an aspect of the sport that I feel like goes not unnoticed, but is one of the deciding factors that can determine a race.
Yeah.
So I think it's proper that at the All-Star race weekend that you have a pit crew challenge. I like it.
And there's a little bit of pressure, right? Because one mistake, and it's not just one mistake and you're losing 2 positions on the track. It's one mistake and you're going from the best pit crew to 17th. And it might not even be a mistake. I saw a lot of really good pit stops and it looked kind of clean, and it's tough for me to the naked eye just to be like, oh, that was a good pit stop. Usually I notice when there's a big mistake, right? Like anybody else. And there were some where I was like, man, I don't know about that. And then it was really fast. And there was others, just like with qualifying laps of the car. I'll see a car and I'm like, oh, they just twitched, man. They're going to be 25th quick and they're 3rd. And it was the same with the pit crews. Also, there was really just no room for error. And on this one moment, the lightning struck in the 71 pit crew, which had a lot of guys. It was their first year in the Cup Series. Number 1. And that shows, again, what the margins are. Here's another thing about the margins. And then we're going to look ahead to the Coke 600, Indy 500, and go ahead and finish this up. Another thing about the margins. Really, when you look at that open race, you would have thought that one or the other of Bubba Wallace or Ty Gibbs, key partner Toyota teams, would have been able to outrun Spire Motorsports, Front Row Motorsports, and actually go up and take at least one of the top 2 spots. One of those 2 drivers, knowing they're probably not getting the fan vote, would have been able to take one of those top 2 spots on the All-Star Open. And neither Ty Gibbs or Bubba Wallace was in the All-Star race. They didn't do it. And that's, that just shows also how close the margins are, that if you get the right track position, Carson Hocevar, John Hunter Nemechek, they were able to outpedal them. And, of course, good drivers in that case, too. Another person that could have won the All-Star Open, Ryan Preece, apparently, and I didn't even know this till after the fact. I was at church when it was all happening. Ryan Preece said he was effing pissed because he got penalized for running over the choose box on the track, coming to a restart there. And he said he couldn't see the choose box or the choose cone. He was the only one that ran over it, though. Granted, he was up front, and he got penalized, and that took him out of a chance to race into the Open, too. So tough evening there for RFK Racing after winning the pole for the All-Star race. They didn't have a lot to show for that. Any last thoughts on the All-Star before we move on, guys? Quick rundown for this weekend. We're not going to do the entry list thing. All right. I will say, though, Jimmy Johnson is plugged into the Cup race, 700th Cup start. There are 40 cars entered for 40 positions, so he is not going to miss it. So unless there's something crazy or unforeseen happens, Jimmy Johnson will be making his 700th start this weekend. Connor Zilic is also entered in the number 87 because Trackhouse doesn't have enough distractions. Everything's going great for Trackhouse. Why not have a fourth car, right? No, Connor Zilic in the Red Bull Chevrolet is going to be there, car number 87. Josh Bilicki will be in Carl Long's number 66, and then the number 44 is entered that normally J.J. Yaley is driven. It's listed as TBA on the entry list blank, at least for right now. The order of events, I'm not going to get into qualifying and all that, but just the main races, Friday night, 8:30 p.m., a late start. Dan, you're going to have to watch this one in bed, buddy. I'm just messing with you. I'm just joking. Not qualifying. Friday evening, North Carolina Education Lottery, 200, 8:30 p.m. All right, that's Friday. Saturday, 4:30 Eastern, just before dinner, is the Xfinity Series. Remember those guys? Remember the Xfinity Series? I think, what letter does that begin with? Okay, the Xfinity Series, the BetMGM 300, that is Saturday, 4:30 Eastern. The Coca-Cola 600 is 6 p.m. on Sunday. All of those races are using the crew of Performance Racing Network, though technically the truck race is on NRN, the NASCAR Racing Network, but the PRN crew is going to have a triple-decker this weekend. And, of course, Cup Series is now on Prime, Xfinity, still CW, trucks, FS1. So you will still see a Fox presence at the track. What are we looking to, Devin, with Prime being involved here? What's just the number one thing that gets you kind of jazzed up about changing the broadcast partner for Cup?
I think the newness, not the newness, but the innovative approach they're looking. Huh?
It sounded like you said the nudists.
No, the newness.
Okay, all right. Because I'm like, if you're going to talk again, I don't know that.
I mean, it's not over traditional television, so anything could happen.
That's true. Hey, actually, that's a good point. Not about nudity, but if a driver drops an F-bomb on Prime, like they could leave that in, right?
Yeah, they could.
Hey,
yeah,
they better. You know what? They better. Respond right here.
We'll drop F-bombs in the post game and the post race show.
FCC regulations on NASCAR for the Cup Series. Respond right here. Mash, like, subscribe. Okay, go ahead.
But just the newness and the innovative and I feel like almost a modern approach to NASCAR broadcasting. Look, they're going to do the double box for the commercials. They're not going to have a full screen green flag commercial break during any of their races that they've got upcoming, which I think is big. And I think that's something more of the traditional TV partners need to maybe look out after for a little bit. And also,
and traditional TV partners are handcuffed because they have to get local breaks in. There are no local breaks here, right? You're not using a local channel. Prime is the same Prime channel around the world. It's because the world is flat when it comes to the internet. The local providers have to, the Fox 5 has to get their, 30-second spots and their promos and stuff in there. So they have to do breaks, and also the cable carriers have to do them too. Just to be clear, it's not just the big networks deciding that they won't do it.
And another thing too, and this is going to be beneficial, I think, for sponsors of the sport. And I said this, believe it or not, 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, after the TV deal was announced. This was after the first Black Friday football game on Prime, but available on the NASCAR broadcasts. There's going to be a link up on the screen where you can click with your Fire TV remote, or if you're on your phone or something, hey, look, you could check out this product. So we could see, I don't know, Solomon Brothers Plumbing for Brad Keselowski. You give him a call or something like that. It could pop up on the screen. So now advertisers could directly advertise to the consumers, and it makes it easier for them to buy their products too. So I think that's another big thing that Prime is doing. They do it with their NFL broadcast. They're going to do it with their NASCAR broadcast. And I think this is a really good opportunity to help and grow the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it kind of 3D, if you will. And I don't mean in the sense of wearing glasses and the cars jumping off the screen, but it makes the experience more interactive. And I think there'll be even some more ways you could get fans involved with interaction and, using the remote to click on this and vote on that, just like they try to do with the NASCAR app. Dan, are you excited about Prime coming on? And is that a concern because it has to be over the internet? And I know you always talk about in the Dawsonville area, sometimes the bandwidth is weird, but do you feel like this is going to be a hindrance for people or actually get it into more in front of more viewers?
Talked to a friend of mine just yesterday, and he was saying that while Prime was in their no over-the-air broadcast, that he wasn't going to watch any of it. And I don't know if that's going to be a factor or not, but I'm not as much concerned about the interaction I am, except for show me the money on what's the product at the end of the day. How good are they going to do on covering this?
Yeah.
And how well is the product going to be?
To add on to things, hour of pre-race, 45 minutes of post-race show after each race, which is something none of the other partners do.
Because you're not limited by what's next, because in theory, this broadcast is its own channel, right?
And another thing too, for people that are wary about Prime Video and all this, if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you will be able to watch the NASCAR Cup races on Prime.
Well, yes, which is why it's going to get it in front of more people, because there's 100 million people, 150 million that have this subscription. However, to Dan's point, if you're trying to get a casual person to run into it by mistake, they may see it if they open Prime Video, but you're not going to get necessarily the sports bar experience. You're also, if people have bandwidth issues, because a lot of people do. I mean, I know there's a lot of cord cutting, but a lot of people still have physical cable. All right. So for people that are reliant upon the internet to get TV or are not normally reliant upon the internet to get TV. And again, this is a small percentage of people, I know, but that is a concern, is if you have low bandwidth in your area, you won't be able to rely on something else unless you have good cell signal and you pull it up on your phone or something. So that's just a concern. I'm not saying you're right, Devin. The pros outweigh the cons, but there are some issues that do need to be exercised for sure. In that, so that's considered. Go ahead.
Just to wrap things up with Prime, I'm really excited to see, because they have a really modern approach to when they do their football broadcasts or NFL broadcasts. I'm really curious to see how they do NASCAR, and maybe this will take it into the next generation or era of NASCAR broadcasting, which is something I think needs to happen.
Well, for sure. No, for sure. And it's going
to
be big.
So to see any AI involvement in this? Do you expect to see anything? And you're talking about the new technologies and stuff that they can bring to this. Do you expect to see some of that within these broadcasts?
Yes. With how innovative they are with their Thursday Night Football broadcasts, I wouldn't be surprised if they had something AI. In the coming
just
races.
The stats, if anything, right? If the teams are using that to cook up stats, why not? That's absolutely, predicting when people will make pit stops or that kind of thing. I think that'll be big. All right, so that's this weekend. There's racing basically Friday late evening, and then in the early evening hours on Saturday and Sunday. The F1 Monaco, that usually launches about 9 a.m. or so on Sunday, 12 noon for Fox. Remember, the Indy 500 is on Fox. I don't know if anybody heard. It's on Fox. I just want to make sure. Fox. Indy 500.
It's going to be on what?
But it's big. Hey, how about this? This is big, though. So there is no qualifying that I think is more thrilling at all than Indy 500 qualifying. And I really believe it now after what we saw this past weekend. Robert Schwartzman, the Israeli-Russian driver for a brand new team in IndyCar, a guy running his first ever oval race, wins the pole. Robert Schwartzman, number 83, won the pole. He was in the formula ranks. He got some F1 practices, some FP practices or FP1s, but he never got a chance to break through and be the main driver of a team. And he comes over to Indy with Prima, who is also a Formula 2 team. They're a team that's in the open wheel ranks in Europe. And he wins the stinking pole. 2 Penske cars disqualified on Fast 12 Sunday. Joseph Newgarden and Will Power for something a little squirrely on the aerodynamic kit on the rear of the car, some attenuators that were glued together that weren't supposed to be. So their times were disallowed, and they were just going to start 11th and 12th. Well, Indy comes out on Monday and says, actually, you're going to start shotgun on the field. Only one driver missed the field, Jacob Abel for Dale Coyne Racing, number 51. He did not make the race in that 51 machine. And Devin just smiles. Apparently, he's not a Jacob Abel fan.
No, I just saw something.
I'm messing with you. Yes, I'm messing with you. But that's big. I would love to see some level of excitement transfer to Daytona 500 qualifying now, because it's just not. I mean, except for in the duels when you have the drivers that are trying to lock themselves in. That's really I would love to see the polls be more somehow, because they do this 4-lap average and you can keep going out. They practice it for hours each day. We're having 45 or 15-minute practices in NASCAR. In the Indy 500, you literally have 8 hours of practice at a time. You just go out, keep going out. Kyle Larson starts 21st. He wrecked a car, I think on Friday. He wrecked a car. They had several cars with big crashes out there, and drivers not feeling so great getting into their cars Sunday to qualify, and still did a good job. So props to Indy. I'll be all locked in on that as best as I can be on Sunday too. I want to mention too, there were other happenings at North Wilkesboro. We didn't have time to break down Lane Riggs trying to smoke Corey Heim there and wreck him out of the lead, and Corey Heim losing that race and being quite upset about it. But Chandler Smith scoots by, gets to victory lane, and Corey Heim ends up spinning on the last lap and finishing, I think it was 17th or so. What was funny is he went down pit road to confront Lane Riggs, not to fight, but just to talk to him. And he walked all the way up to where the second place truck was supposed to be, because Riggs did finish second. But Riggs was parked on the other end of pit road. And all this whole horde of security and media followed him all the way up pit road, and then awkwardly walked all the way down pit road. So Lane Riggs could be talked to by Corey Heim for a total of 5 seconds, if that.
Does that remind you of anything of a TV commercial or anything? Does that remind you of anything? I'm at the wrong end of the racetrack.
Oh, yeah, Michael Waltrip. I'm at the wrong track. Yeah, but Corey Heim led people on that awkward march of shame there just to tell Lane Riggs he didn't like what he did and walk away.
And like, Doug, do you remember when the Moonshiners came to Gresham Motorsports Park? Mark and Jeff came to Gresham. And which one was it that started that we let flag off the first race? I think it was Jeff, maybe that. It may have been Mark. One of the first race. And they had sampled their wares for most of the day. And when he threw the flag, his cap blew off his head. And he reached out to get his cap as the cars were going under the flag stand. And I thought he was going to fall out of the flag stand onto the racetrack. So dropping the flag on the racetrack, that's a big deal. But your hat blowing off and reaching to get it and falling out of the flag stand would have been 100 times worse.
Oh, I do remember this. Was there a debris caution like for the hat, or did it blow to the inside?
It blew to the inside. It wouldn't have stopped for a hat anyway.
And then he blew a .16. So okay.
Woo, I think it might have been a 2.4.
Okay, that's lethal.
That's lethal.
But nonetheless, yeah, that was good times. You're having the Moonshiners from the TV show.
That was almost as good as dropping the Easter eggs out of the helicopter onto the front straightaway of the racetrack.
That was that could have gone really badly.
It almost went badly.
But it sure did. I was down there trying to.
It's like I said about there is no bad press. It's still press, and that got a lot of press, and it was a great thing. It was great for the racetrack.
God, yeah, it sure did. And I remember being with the microphone, being down there trying to get parents and kids to back up, because the parents were being jerks about it. All right. And like, just like they do now, they try to get kids to go grab NASCAR drivers' hats and stuff. It was just like that here. There was more greed from the parents to the kids. That was almost out of control.
You can picture this, the helicopter's hovering over the front straightaway. They're getting ready to drop the eggs out. And as the helicopter hovers just above the racetrack, they're getting ready to dump these out. The kids all start running before the eggs are dropped out. And as the eggs are dropped out, the wash from the propeller blades, the eggs are going everywhere. And
now, are these plastic eggs or like eggs you buy from the store?
These are plastic eggs. This is not
Yeah,
like
this was like the
WKRP in
great turkey
Cincinnati where
drop
they
of
drop live
WKRP.
turkeys.
Yeah,
Yeah, this.
exactly. We just said it at the same time. It was just like the great turkey drop of WKRP. That's
Yep.
exactly
Yep.
WKRP in Cincinnati. That's exact. Yeah, that could have been really bad, and I got to be there for it. That was great. So did you. That was so much
We
fun.
all got to be
Good
there, and it was a
sports
great
facts.
time, and it was talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks. So it was great.
Support your local short track, everyone.
You got it,
Support your local
and
short
that's what I
track.
love
I
about. I
wish
wanted to throw
Gresham was
that in.
still open so we could pull
I
stunts
wanted to
like
throw
that.
that in about Wilkesboro because the thing about Wilkesboro that I loved was you had a lot of series that got to come and race there that normally you don't get
Yeah,
to see at any other tracks because it's
yeah.
just impossible to do.
And they got to be on FS1 too, which is big. So let me mention that too. The ZMAX Cars Tour ran their late model stock race was on Friday evening with Dale Jr., Kevin Harvick in the booth, Landon Lewis in a car that Harvick owns, number 29 Chevy. He went to victory lane. On Thursday night, it was Caden Honeycutt, full-time Truck Series driver, who was also in Friday's race. He won the Pro Late model race there. I believe anyway. Yeah. And Landon Lewis, got the pole for the Friday race. Caden Honeycutt won the Thursday race. I didn't get to watch that. That was on Flow Sports. And then Sunday afternoon, you had the ZMAX Cars Tour. Let me say that again. You had the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, and it saw Craig Lutz go to victory lane. But I want to say those two races, those bonus FS1 races, were crap shows. They were wrecking left and right, and I don't know that it made their series look too great for a bigger audience there, but it was entertaining nonetheless. And at the end, you had good battles for the lead. So congrats to Craig Lutz in the modifieds, Landon Lewis in the late model stocks, and in the pro Cars Tour late models, Caden Honeycutt on their other victories to go along with Chandler Smith and Christopher Bell, Dan.
But Doug, Devin, it gives you an opportunity. If you've never raced in front of, this would be like playing ball in front of some of the scouts that go looking for talent. This is like going to a place because you got a lot of eyes looking at you that normally you're not going to get exposure anywhere you go to like you could get at Wilkesboro.
Correct. Absolutely. So with that being said, we're set for a big NASCAR National Series weekend, Coca-Cola 600 being capping that off. And let's pray the weather holds up. Gosh, I'd love to see Kyle Larson at least complete the double. No matter what the results are, a lead lap finish in both would only make him the second driver ever to complete all 1,100 miles in the same day, joining Tony Stewart from 2000.
Does the military still do the same display at Charlotte that they did for years and years for Memorial Day?
They do so, yeah. I don't know the exact thing, but they definitely have stuff etched into it. Sometimes a moment of silence. They have some big stuff programmed in. I do have to get going here. I got a work thing coming up right now. So real quick, some final thoughts from you, Dan.
I just want to tell everybody to have a great weekend, be safe, and just have a great weekend and enjoy the family.
Great weather in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Charlotte, North Carolina this weekend. Low 70s in both cities. So go out, support softball, or go out and watch the Coca-Cola 600. Great weather.
Absolutely. Yeah, Devin, we're proud of you getting your last big runs there with UNG softball, man. We're looking forward to hearing more about that. Hey, for me, everybody definitely go watch the NASCAR Full Speed on Netflix. But two things, though. It only focuses on like 5 drivers, and it's only 5 episodes long and only in the playoffs. We need to have this thing out before the season starts, and it needs to go just a little bit deeper into the story of the whole Cup Series because it doesn't hit. And I know some drivers don't want to be involved, right? I get that. Chase has said that. But I feel like as great as the storytelling was, and it was, I've got a friend of mine, a coworker, a brand new racing fan, and she hooked on to Daniel Suarez and already bought the T-shirt after watching it. But why isn't this out before the season like F1's is? What are we doing? That missed opportunity there. All right. Devin and Dan, thank you all for joining. We thank everybody for tuning in here, whether it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or GoPRN.com. Be sure to remember you can watch this. Granted, we don't have a whole lot of multimedia going. It's just us on camera. But you can watch this on YouTube, and we put out some short videos on YouTube and our social media as well. Check out the 5 to Go Podcast Facebook page. For the latest there. I dropped in a good picture of Dev or the video of Dev. I'll be sure to share that as he was wrapping up UNG softball coverage there. So be sure to go give Dev some love on that deal. So for Devin and Dan, I'm Doug. Happy Memorial Day. A big salute to our troops, and we'll talk to you here again soon on the 5 to Go Podcast. God bless.